Hello everyone. On this special broadcast on NDTV, I am being joined by a very renowned author of Babur, the Chessboard King, which continues to be a best-selling till now. Welcome and congratulations, Aabhas Maldahiyar. My first question to you would be Babur, the Chessboard King. You have very cleverly chosen the title of this book. Tell us the story behind it and also throw some light on why Babur never managed to be a stable king.
Thank you, Aditi, for having me here. And as you rightly said that, of course, the title was chosen very cleverly. And at the same time, it also happens that this title was not given by me, but this title rather to Babur was given by somebody who is known as Farishta, a great Muslim historian of around 16th, 17th century. And he called Babur so because actually he saw Babur as somebody who could not consolidate his territories. He would always have one territory at a time. And the people who played the chess would know that king is somebody who is not a very powerful one in all the reality. But if the king is gone, the game is over. And what a king would do on the chessboard, it would just go 45 degrees left, right, rear, and the back. And that's all a king can do. Likewise, Babur's life was almost like that. It was so that he would gain Samarkand, and then he will get to know that he is losing Andijan. While he was moved towards Andijan to regain it, again he will get to know that the Samarkand is gone. And by the time he reaches Andijan, he'll get to know that even Andijan is lost. Then he will further like to stay somewhere close to Andijan so that he can still take a control of it, but it does not happen. Then he will move to some other place. So somehow life of Babur till the time he reaches Kabul has always been with one territory at a time, and he could never become a very powerful king that way. And it so was the case that because all of us have always heard the good things about the Timurids, as I call them, not the Mughals, because this is not a very right term to call them as a Mughals. And so we have always seen them in very esteemed and pristine light, but reality was much more different. And I got the reality check once upon a time when I came across something about the economic policies and how actually they made the life of the people miserable compared to like how it has been portrayed. And then I began to look into them from economic perspective to start with. And then I got furthermore, and then I was advised by very good well-wishers that if you have already done a lot of research around it, why not start with the book itself? And so it is Babur to start with, but I'm looking to go ahead with its sequel of Babur would come, and then Akbar and Humayun and so on and on.
You know, while reading your book, I realized that you made an observation about Babur having similar traits as of Timur, who was a 14th century ruler, in regards to the skull towers that they both built using heads of their enemies.
Yeah, and in fact, it takes you back to one more point that they never called themselves as Mughals. They called themselves as Timurid Gurkhaniyas. And and when you say that Babur founded Mughal Empire, it is factually wrong because there was no Mughal Empire in India. And Babur was always inspired by Taimur because he is one of the great grandfather of him. And when he was growing and he had lost his father at the age of 11, his grandmother would tell him the stories of Taimur. And he always had this dream in the mind that I have to fulfill everything what Taimur could not fulfill. And it happens that when you're growing and the stories what you hear in the childhood, they have very strong impression upon you, and you tend to be somebody whom you have always been seen like inspiration. And it was very Central Asian method of teaching people a lesson whom you hate or who are your enemies, that you behead them and make the tower of the heads, which later on became the skulls because the muscles and everything will be gone, so only a skull would be left. And Babur made the skull towers or the towers of the head not only of the Hindus but also of the Muslims. But there were certain differences that against the Hindus he called it a direct jihad, and but when he was slaughtering the Muslims, say in Afghanistan, he killed a lot of Afghans actually. And it becomes so interesting that he says and writes in a diary that even if they choose to surrender, but because they did not surrender initially, I was very fed up of them, so I choose to behead them. And then he makes a count that today I chopped around 200 heads and I made a tower out of them. And just imagine the psyche of this man, that whatever he's writing, it's a diary. Baburnama is basically a diary. In the evening, he comes after all this, after having done all this thing, and then suddenly he says that, that I have beheaded so many people. This is the account of it. And he's writing couplets about it. That poetic trait of him never dies away. He's always writing poems.
But there are some web series and roads in India as well as some political leaders who glorify Babur. What's your opinion on that?
Again, I generally don't like to do the name calling because academia has to remain in the realm of academia, but at times it's important to call out the people too. To start with, our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, saw Babur as somebody who was a gentleman, who was a man of a culture, and he did not do something exactly like how his ancestor did, that is, plunder, the massacres, etc. But reality is very far from it. While I acknowledge that Babur was a very good poet, he was a good family man, unlike of his further successors and also other nephews and the cousins, whoever he had in the family. But even after I say that, I have to say it very clearly that he was a hardcore Islamist, and Bamiyan Buddha was for first time attempted to be destroyed by actually Babur. Later on, it went on with Aurangzeb, and finally Taliban could fulfill the whole thing. So, if you're talking, Pandit Nehru also saw Gautam Buddha in very pristine light, and he said that good things about Gautam Buddha. So, if you are saying a person as one of the most cultured man, he did not destroy it, but he is the man who actually destroyed the Bamiyan Buddha for the first time, whom you also see as a great icon. So, you can't have a thesis and antithesis living at the same page. You can have disagreements, but not such kind of stark contrast. And uh, when people talk about his syncretism, which Pandit Nehru also spoke about, then we have to go to the eve of the Battle of Khanwa, where Babur fought the battle with Rana Sanga. He denounces alcohol and he says that now I'm not going to take alcohol, and he drops the vessels of the alcohol, and the pots are broken. Then he says that the way I have destroyed the pots of the alcohol, this is exactly how I'm going to destroy the idols of the Hindus. And Babur is saying it. And he further goes on to destroy temples and the Jain temples, the Hindu temples. It happens. So, how can we even say that he can be a great man for us? I'm a biographer of Babur, but still, I have not made a pamphlet which is not to really please either of the political wings, either right or left, because there is stuff in the book which may not be going well down the throat of, say, the so-called right wing. It will not be live, and there are many things which certainly will not be liked by the left wing, because history owes to none but to the truth and the time, or rather the time of that, exactly the time of that period and the people of that era. So we just can't say that ye aise nahi tha waise tha, though the fact is something else through the sources what we have.
Let's talk about the stunning revelation that you have done in your book about Taj Mahal, famously known as epitome of love and devotion, was actually built at the cost of 8 million deaths.
Yeah, sure. And so, like anyone else, even when I would come in my childhood to Delhi for vacations or uh, any occasion, it will always be a case that I have to go along with everybody else to the Taj. And that was the era when we would click the pictures to the Kodak cameras, the different one, not like the smartphones and the very advanced cameras what we have. So, and it was like a ritual. You have to be in the front of a Taj. And we were always told that it's an example of the love. It's a metaphor for the love, rather, that if you want to see the love, then you have to see the love between Mumtaz and the Ta and Shah Jahan, and Taj is the symbol or the icon of it. And I, being an architect, love this, still love the structure. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's a masterpiece. But when I got into the insides of it, it shook me because if you have been seeing that structure in such a good light. You have always believed that it has been a symbol of love and whatnot. And then you get to know those facts. So those facts are these, that when the Taj was commissioned, and I use the word commissioned because I want to be very objective about it, because there are certain people who make a claim that it was some Tejo Mahalya or something, right? I don't know what it was. And because but I want to reach to that point as well, that what exactly it was. So while I will researching more on Shah Jahan, I would like to get into the documents that what exactly it was and try to understand it too. But right, as of now, I use the word commission because whatsoever it may happen, whether it was a built structure, already existing structure, or it was constructed from origin, right from beginning, it was commissioned for sure. It was commissioned for a cost of 4.18 silver rupees. So while this has been done, a famine has occurred in Deccan, Malwa, and Gujarat, and that famine is so bad that around 8 million people have died, succumbed to it. We always talk about the famine of Bengal of 1943, in which around 4 million people died. Of course, you can't say that there 4 million people died and here 8 million. You can't make such comparison. It will look very inhumane. But for the sake of the argument and for the sake of looking into the perspective, we must compare. In 1943, when our population was much larger, we lost around 4 million people. But here, in around, say, 3 centuries earlier than that, we lost around 8 million people because of a famine, which was actually engineered by none other than Shah Jahan. And it happened exactly in that period. So, what had happened that the governors of Shah Jahan, who are in this region of Deccan, the Malwa, and the Gujarat region, they have revolted against Shah Jahan. They have said that we are going to shake hands with his enemies, the Adil Shahis. And Shah Jahan has lost the control of these land, and these land are eventually very fertile. They give him a lot of revenue. Like if I give you an example, Malwa Malwa gave a revenue of around 53%. So losing all these territories was big thing for Shah Jahan. But he decided that if it can't remain with me and if I can't get revenue, I will not let even my enemies have it. So he sends out the regal army. They destroy the crops. They burn a lot of crops. And this destruction of the crops led to scarcity of the food because they don't have anything in the future and the rain does not occur and the famine happens. And that eyewitness account of famine is so bad that few people have said that people are eating from the excreta of the dead. Few people are bargaining the son, they're selling out their son to somebody so that he will become a slave, and at least he will be alive, he will live. There are circumstances where we get to know that people are trading goat meat with the dog meat. It's happening. So, and all these accounts which I'm telling you about the famine is coming from the biographer of Shah Jahan, the court historian Lahori. He tells about that the army was sent. Then he tells it what is the condition of it. And there's some Europeans also who have given eyewitness account of the famine. And this is exactly the period when Shah Jahan's wife Mumtaz dies while giving birth to the 15th child in the 19 years of marriage. So when you fit in all these equations, 7.4 million people died because of a famine created by this man. And that's the period exactly when the Taj has been commissioned for a wife who died while giving birth to the 14th child in 19 years of marriage. Then you just start making an equation. Was it really a love? Was it really something uh, to really celebrate? Is Taj really the symbol of love? I do see Taj the symbol of genocide. Though it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but it's certainly the symbol of genocide because those 7.4 million people died, or almost 8 million people died, this man was commissioning a structure for 4.18 crore and he gave a famine relief of rupees 1 lakh. So that's what the revelation was for me, and it was not something which could leave me at peace for a very long time.
Through this book, you have also questioned the NCERT textbooks, which many like me, you and I have read during our school term. So I want to ask you, what problem do you have with NCERT textbooks?
So even I have read the same NCERT books, I'm sure. So, and that's the reason why I always saw the Mughal emperors, which whom I don't call Mughals, I call them Timurids, because they never associated themselves with Mughals. Um, I saw them in glory. I saw them as being somebody like Akbar was always seen as a man who tied India all together. It's a recent narrative when people say that Britishers gave us India, but there was a time when through the literature when it was said that Akbar was a man who tied the whole of a Bharat as a empire of Hindustan. He did so, but there are many such lies which really exist there. And one of them was, which Sanjeev Sanyal has in fact elaborated a lot upon, is how Ashoka was already a Buddhist before the war of a Kalinga. It was not the remorse because of the war that made him a Buddhist. When you flip this all together and say that Ashok became Buddhist after the war, he chose to really leave a certain fold and pick some other one. You are surely trying to manufacture some agendas. You are certainly looking to do something else, because even the person who has written hagiography for Ashoka, Charles Allen, he also admits and he has also explained that Ashok was actually Buddhist when he invaded Kalinga or did a war in Kalinga. This is one of such example. So does it not look like an intellectual dishonesty? Because those kids who are not going to pursue a career in humanities, and if we become more precise, they say that they are not going to pursue a career in history. They will be reading all these lies. They will be reading that somewhere Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar was a great man who gave us secularism. These are the words which are written. We will perhaps not know much about the glory of Vijayanagar. When I say this, many people will raise the brow and say that, hey, but there is certain mention of Vijayanagar. But just the mention does not suffice, because if you're singing the false glory to the Timurids slash Mughals, and you are just saying that there was a strong empire which existed, who are known as the Vijayanagar Empire, then you don't talk about this, then that the ancestor of these people, Babur, Akbar, etc., was Shahrukh, who was son of Taimur. He had sent his ambassador to see the land of Vijayanagar because he had heard stories that is a land which is more prosperous than the land of Samarkand. Because that time the word was in their territories, in their area, that Samarkand is one of the wealthiest. But somehow this man comes to know about Vijayanagar. He sends his ambassador to see. When this ambassador comes and he's taken aback, reports back. The ambassador's name is Abdul Razak. He reports back that the size of the palace of a king is even larger than the extent of our biggest of bazaar. He says that the gems are being sold on the street as if they are selling vegetables. So that was the glory of Vijayanagar. And if you give the false glory of the empire of Mughal, that people are becoming wealthy, prosperous, the people were becoming poorer as per the statistics too, and then you talk nothing about Vijayanagar Empire, their glory, which even the ancestor of Mughals saw, when you make Ashoka Buddhist after he invaded the Kalinga War, which is again far from realities. What will it make of those students who just matriculated and then took the science stream or the commerce stream and are never going to turn back to the history? This will kind of invade some sort of a guilt among them. At times, it will also create a sense of not having much pride about this civilization. And you need not have an unnecessary pride, but why not have pride about something which is based on realities? So you are just wiping about those realities, which can really make you feel good about the civilization. And then in return, it will make you think that, can I more contribute for the society? Can I do more for our country? And because without the pride, nothing comes. You always live in some sort of guilt. It happened with me, and that's why I became a Marxist once upon a time. So I do say that we surely need to tell the history as they were, and NCERT fails to do it.
You have written in your book that jihad and victory of Islam were the main motive of Babur when he entered India. Well, something that you will dwell upon in volume 2 of this book. But, if you could give us some insight or like a teaser for our readers.
Yeah, because When we talk of Babur, most people either try to really make him a great hero, or some people will like to make him very devilish. And nowhere we get a very insightful biographical account which would be mix up good and bad. Certainly, he did. When India's perspective is concerned, it was all the bad. I won't say that there was anything good which he brought in India. And jihad was one very terrible thing which happened to us. Uh, and the examples come from his own account, that is Baburnama. I'll give you a few of the instances. He says that he, in fact, compares himself with Ghazni and Ghori. He does not choose to compare himself with any other sultanate which was ruling earlier, but he chooses with Ghazni and Ghori, who were the biggest of the iconoclast or the idol breakers or the Butshikan, which we saw. He says that I am going to be one like them. Then the another example which I gave you in the initial opening conversation what we were having, that he placed to destroy the idols of the Hindu gods, like how destroying the pots of alcohol or the vessels of alcohol. He takes the title of Ghazi only after the said victory against Rana Sanga. And he say, and the statements what he make, the Fateh which is written on the advice of him by somebody else, that includes a lot of ill thing about the Hindus, and how, and with the comparisons are made about how the victory of Islam is happening in Mecca. Those kind of comparisons are made. And Babur never evoked jihad when he was fighting with the Afghans, but he specifically talks about jihad when he is in Hindustan. And because Taimur's life had a big impression upon him all along, and he always believed that I have to fulfill the dream and the desire of Amir Taimur, which he couldn't fulfill. One was to establish a sultanate in Hindustan, and at the same time to Islamize. I say it is. I specifically choose to say Islamize because it is not exactly written in Baburnama that I want to Islamize, but it's the triangulation which leads you to assume it and conclude. Rather, I would say conclude, because Taimur's first agenda or the aim, as penned by his biographer Yazdi, is he wants to Islamize whole of the world, because this has been said by Prophet Muhammad. So he has to fulfill it, whatsoever it may take. He When he goes in the battle against the polytheist, it's not that he has not fought battle with the Muslims, but especially when he goes into battle with the polytheist, he takes the prescription from the holy book that how exactly I'm supposed to treat the people. He is very clear about it. And Babur is trying to replicate everything what Taimur had done. Now he compares himself with Ghazni and Ghori. Babur also says that I'm going to break the idols. He invokes jihad when he's going in the battle against Rana Sangram Singh. He also takes the title of Ghazi. So if it was not jihad, then what else? He was certainly looking to wage the jihad and Islamize Hindustan, which he did. And that's where, one which there's something which I have not brought in this volume, which will come in the volume which follows. It is about his one will, which often people circulate saying that Babur had said that you have to protect the cows because the Hindus worship them and all these things. And he's said to be giving this will to Humayun. And it's that will says that Humayun has now become the sovereign, and that's when the will is being given. And this is a Persian text of 18th century. This is the latest source what we have. And when you have got an 18th century text talking about the secular angle of Babur, of trying to protect the cows, etc., then you have to, the first question which should come to your mind, that why this source is appearing in 18th century and why it was not a part of Babur Nama. Second thing is that when Babur died, Humayun was not a sovereign. This will makes him a sovereign. So it's not true. The people who know the Persian, and that's a very interesting thing, Aditi, that most of the people who want to talk about the Mughals don't know the Persian. They have not read the original text. So this 18th century text which I'm talking about is entirely different from the Persian which was being used in the time when Babur lived. The Persian did evolve, it changed. It's not the same today as it was in 17th century. It was not the same as it was in the 15th century. So it's very tough to believe that that will ever appear because it gives the circumstances wrong, as in it shows Humayun was a sovereign, which he was not by then when Babur dies, and the Persian does not match exactly with the era when Babur lived. So it's very tough to even assume that Babur at all was secular, and it's very tough to get away with this idea that he was not trying to wage jihad against the Hindus and establish an Islamic empire in Hindustan.
And Aabhas, before letting you go, if you can please tell our viewers and your loyal readers that by when can they expect the next volume of this book to come out?
So I have just closed the manuscript, and I am 2 days due to send out the MS to the Penguin. And once that is done, I will get to know. But I am expecting it to hit the stores early next year, and because the book will also deal with the Ayodhya also very much in detail, that what exactly had happened. This what we know in pop culture or the pop ideas or whatever it is, it certainly is not true. There's something more to it, which will be brought in the book as well, and expecting it the next year, early next year.
Thank you so much, Aabhas, for speaking to NDTV on this special broadcast.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.